Chapter 1. The Shadowed Crossroads. The village of Mistvale Crossroads lay cloaked in a fog so dense it seemed to breathe, muffling sound and veiling sight. It was autumn 1935, and the isolation of this remote English hamlet hung heavy in the air, as though the world beyond had faded into oblivion. At the heart of the village, where three ancient roads met, stood a weathered stone etched with runes, its origins lost to time. Here, at this spectral junction, Mr. William Thatcher, a farmer of sturdy build and weathered features, made a discovery that would shatter the village's quietude. Trudging through the mud, his lantern a feeble beacon against the gloom, he stumbled upon a sleek Bentley parked askew on the path. Its presence was incongruous, a symbol of modernity amidst the timeless landscape. As he approached, a sense of dread washed over him. The driver's door was ajar, and inside, slumped over the wheel, was a man, lifeless. Mr. Thatcher recognized him as Mr. Edward Blackwood, a diamond merchant of some renown. His face was pale, his eyes wide and staring, with a dark bruise encircling his neck, a clear sign of strangulation. Beside him on the seat lay an empty leather pouch, its clasps open, as if mocking the absence of its contents. "Good Lord," Thatcher muttered, his voice trembling. He glanced around, but the fog offered no witnesses, only silence. With a heavy heart, he hastened to alert the authorities. Chief Inspector James Japp of Scotland Yard arrived with commendable speed, his pragmatic nature cutting through the oppressive atmosphere. He secured the scene with brisk efficiency, directing constables to keep the curious at bay. Upon examining the body, he noted the livid marks around the neck, confirming strangulation as the cause of death. In Blackwood's pocket, he found a receipt from a prestigious London jeweller, detailing the purchase of diamonds worth a small fortune. The empty pouch beside the body left little doubt as to what had been taken. Recognizing the complexity of the case, the fog, the isolation, the missing jewels, Japp made the decision to telephone Hercule Poirot, the Belgian detective whose intellect was as renowned as his moustache was immaculate. Poirot arrived later that day, stepping from a Rolls-Royce with his loyal companion, Captain Arthur Hastings. The detective's egg-shaped head tilted slightly as he surveyed the scene, his green eyes sharp beneath the brim of his hat. Hastings, ever the earnest observer, shivered beside him. Japp approached, his face etched with determination. "Glad you could make it, Poirot. It's a right puzzle. The scene seems odd to me, almost as if it was staged. And the locals, they say this crossroads is cursed. Strange things happen here, they claim." "Dreadful place, Poirot," Hastings remarked, glancing at the rune-etched stone. "A curse, eh? That's a bit of local color, I suppose?" Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. "Curses, mon ami, are but tales for the superstitious. It is the human mind that crafts true mysteries." He stepped forward, his patent leather shoes sinking slightly into the mud, a fact he noted with a grimace. Ah, the English countryside, so picturesque yet so untidy. Hastings chuckled. "You'll manage, old chap. Think of it as an adventure." "Adventure, yes," Poirot murmured, "but one must preserve one's dignity even in the wilds." "Indeed, mon inspecteur," Poirot replied, his interest piqued. He knelt beside the Bentley, gloved fingers tracing the car's frame. "Most curious. The car is positioned precisely at the convergence of the three roads, as if placed with intent." Japp nodded. "Noticed that myself, but why?" "That," Poirot said, rising with a thoughtful air, "is what we must uncover." As he spoke, Japp gestured toward a grand silhouette looming through the fog. "Ashford Manor just there, home to Lord Reginald Ashford and his sister, Lady Beatrice. It's the only residence close enough to the crossroads. If anyone saw or heard anything, it would be them." Given its proximity, they might be involved, or at least know something. Poirot's eyes gleamed, cat-like in the dimness. The manor's closeness is indeed significant, mon ami. It suggests a thread worth pulling. Japp nodded. Aye, could be key. A crime this close to their doorstep. They're either witnesses or suspects. Precisely, Poirot agreed. Let us proceed to the manor where the shadows may reveal their secrets. Thus resolved, Poirot and Hastings turned toward Ashford Manor, the fog swirling about them like a conspirator reluctant to yield its truths. Yet Poirot, his little grey cells already at work, vowed to pierce the veil that cloaked Mistvale Crossroads. The game, as he might have said, was afoot. Chapter 2. Secrets at Ashford Manor. The fog that enveloped Mistvale Crossroads seemed to thicken as Hercule Poirot and Captain Arthur Hastings approached Ashford Manor. The estate rose from the mist like a phantom, its Tudor beams and Georgian elegance framed by the sombre woods that pressed close on all sides. The manor's grandeur was tempered by an air of melancholy, as though its very stones bore the weight of unspoken tales. At the threshold, Poirot and Hastings were met by a liveried footman, his expression one of polite inquiry. "May I help you, gentlemen?" Poirot stepped forward, his card at the ready. "I am Hercule Poirot, and this is my associate, Captain Hastings. We are here on a matter of utmost urgency. We are investigating the unfortunate demise of Mr. Edward Blackwood, whose body was discovered not far from here. We must speak with Lord Reginald Ashford immediately." The footman's eyes widened slightly, but he maintained his composure. "I shall inform his lordship at once. Please, wait here." Moments later the doors swung open to reveal Lord Reginald Ashford, master of this shadowed domain, his tall figure clad in a tweed suit that spoke of wealth and tradition. His brow furrowed as he took in the unexpected visitors, a flicker of unease beneath his aristocratic reserve. "Monsieur Poirot, is it? And Captain Hastings. My footman has informed me of your purpose. A most distressing affair, this murder." Poirot bowed slightly. "Indeed, Lord Reginald, we apologize for the intrusion, but given the proximity of your estate to the crime scene, we must ask some questions of you and your household." Reginald's face paled, but he nodded stiffly. "Of course. Please come in. This is most distressing." He led them through the grand hall, its vaulted ceiling lost in shadow, the air heavy with silence broken only by the faint creak of ancient timbers. In the oak-panelled study, a room of opulent severity, Poirot began his inquiry. The walls were lined with leather-bound volumes, and a fire crackled in the grate, casting dancing shadows across portraits of stern Ashford forebears. Reginald stood by the hearth, his posture rigid, while Poirot and Hastings settled into high-backed chairs. "Lord Reginald," Poirot began, his tone measured and precise, "I must ask where you were on the night of this most unfortunate event, the murder of Monsieur Blackwood." Reginald ceased his pacing, his hands clasping behind his back. "I was here, in this very room, reviewing accounts. Alone, I fear. No one can confirm my presence, but I assure you I had no hand in this ghastly affair." Poirot's green eyes narrowed slightly, cat-like in their intensity. "A solitary task for so late an hour. And yet your hands, mon ami, they tremble as you speak. And your brow, it glistens with perspiration. These are not the signs of a man at ease with his story." The colour drained from Reginald's face, his composure faltering. I was merely tired from working late. The accounts, they are complex." He fidgeted nervously, his fingers twitching as he spoke. Poirot's gaze lingered on Reginald's trembling hands. "Indeed, mon ami, but in matters of murder even the smallest inconsistency must be noted. You say no one can confirm your presence, yet the manor has many servants. Surely someone might have seen you." Reginald's voice wavered. I was alone, as I said. The servants were in their quarters by then. Poirot observed the beads of sweat upon his brow and filed the observation away, a silent note in the ledger of his little grey cells. As they emerged from the study, Poirot's sharp ears caught the murmur of hushed voices. 2 maids, their aprons crisp and white, whispered in the corridor. "Did you hear a body at the Crossroads? They say it's cursed, that place." "Yes, and so close to the manor. It's dreadful." Poirot's lips tightened. Superstition. Always superstition. But perhaps it masked something more tangible. He encountered Lady Beatrice Ashford in the dimly lit corridor. She was a vision of fragility, her pale hands fluttering like moths, yet her eyes held a guarded sharpness. A locket gleamed at her throat, its chain clutched tightly in her grasp. "Lady Beatrice," Poirot greeted her with a slight bow, "I am Hercule Poirot, and this is Captain Hastings. We seek to unravel the tragedy that has cast a shadow over your estate, so close to your home." Her voice quavered, a delicate tremor beneath her words. "It is too dreadful, Monsieur Poirot. Poor Mr. Blackwood. Such a tragedy so close to our home. The servants are all whispering about it, fearful of what it might mean." Poirot's gaze lingered on the locket. "A charming piece, madame. A family treasure, perhaps?" She started, her fingers tightening. "Oh, this?" "Yes, my mother's. A small comfort in such times." Poirot nodded, though his eyes betrayed his doubt. There was a story behind those nervous hands, and he intended to uncover it. Meanwhile, Hastings had wandered into the drawing-room where he found Mr. Albert Mitchell, a florid-faced insurance agent whose pomposity filled the space. Mitchell was there to discuss estate matters with Lord Reginald, but he seized the chance to regale Hastings with his own importance. "Shocking business, this murder," he boomed, adjusting his tie, "but hardly surprising in such a remote spot. Why, my own Bentley was parked just outside the manor last night. Might have been me in that car, eh?" Hastings raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Your Bentley, you say? Near the manor?" "Quite so," Mitchell nodded vigorously. "Left it there while I tended to business. Lucky escape, I'd wager." Hastings tucked this detail into his memory, sensing its potential weight in the puzzle Poirot was assembling. As Poirot and Hastings moved through the manor, they encountered Mrs. Clara Blackwood, Edward's widow, in the grand hall. She had arrived moments earlier, escorted by a constable after visiting the crime scene, her face pale and drawn. Lady Beatrice stood beside her, offering a comforting embrace. "Oh, Clara, my dear," Beatrice murmured, her voice trembling. "What a terrible shock this must be. Come, sit down." Clara's voice was soft, her gaze steady despite the tears welling in her eyes. "I was at the inn when they told me. I couldn't believe it. Edward, gone, just like that. And so near here, where we thought it was safe." Poirot offered a murmur of condolence, noting the steel beneath her calm. "Madame, my deepest sympathies. We shall find the truth, I assure you." Clara's voice wavered, her hands trembling slightly. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. Edward was a cautious man. Yet even he could not foresee this fate." Mr. Thomas Green, the manor's butler, stood silently nearby, his discreet presence belied by a past shadowed by whispers of old misdeeds. His bow was impeccable, yet his eyes flickered with something unreadable. As Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart, a sound caught the detective's ear, a hushed, urgent whisper drifting from the stables. Peering through the mist, Poirot glimpsed Lady Beatrice speaking with a stranger, a man of undeniable charm. Mr. Victor Grayson, Poirot would later learn, his manner smooth as silk, yet edged with menace. Their exchange was brief, but the intensity of it set Poirot's instincts ablaze. "Curious, Hastings," Poirot murmured as they stepped into the fog. "Very curious indeed. The secrets of Ashford Manor, they begin to stir." Hastings glanced back at the Manor's looming silhouette. "You think there's more to this than meets the eye, eh, Poirot?" "Always, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice a quiet promise. "Always." Chapter 3. The Hidden Compartment. The dawn broke over Mistvale Crossroads with a tentative light, as though reluctant to disturb the secrets veiled by the night's dense fog. The mist, which had lain thick and unyielding upon the village, began to retreat, pierced by shafts of pale sunlight that illuminated the ancient rune-etched stone at the junction of the three roads. Hercule Poirot, accompanied by Chief Inspector Japp and Captain Arthur Hastings, returned to the scene of Mr. Edward Blackwood's murder, their figures emerging from the haze like spectres summoned to unravel a mystery. The Bentley remained where it had been found, its sleek form less shrouded now, though no less enigmatic. The morning air carried a crispness that sharpened the senses, and Poirot, his green eyes gleaming beneath the brim of his impeccable hat, surveyed the surroundings with the precision of a watchmaker. Japp, ever the practical man, adjusted his overcoat against the chill. "This light ought to show us something we missed in the fog, eh, Poirot?" Hastings nodded, his gaze drifting to the stone marker. "Quite so. Last night it was like peering through a curtain." Poirot's lips twitched into a faint smile. "The fog, it obscures, mes amis, but the light, it reveals. Yet it is the mind that must discern the truth." He approached the Bentley with measured steps, his gloved hands clasped behind his back, his patent leather shoes clicking softly on the damp earth, a sound he noted with mild displeasure. He circled the vehicle, his scrutiny meticulous. His fingers paused at the driver's door, tracing the frame with a delicate touch. "Curieux," he murmured, his moustache quivering slightly as his eyes narrowed. "What have you found, Poirot?" Japp asked, leaning closer. Poirot did not reply at once. Instead, he opened the door and bent forward, his gaze falling upon the dashboard. With a practiced motion, he pressed a small, concealed button beneath the glove compartment. A faint click resounded, and a panel slid open, unveiling a hidden compartment within the woodwork. Hastings drew a sharp breath. "By Jove! A secret hiding place!" Poirot reached inside with care, withdrawing 3 objects: a folded note, a crude map, and a small stone etched with a rune. He unfolded the note, his fingers steady, and read aloud in his precise tones. "The third road hides the prize." Japp's brow furrowed. "The third road? What's that supposed to mean?" Poirot handed the note to Japp and turned to the map. It depicted the crossroads in rough strokes, with a bold X marked along one of its paths. "This, presumably, is the third road," he said, tapping the mark with a gloved finger. "And this stone," Poirot added, holding up the rune-inscribed object, "it bears a symbol much like that upon the crossroads marker. A curious addition, no?" Hastings peered over his shoulder. "Could it lead to the diamonds, do you think?" "Perhaps, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice measured. "Or perhaps it is intended to lead us astray." As they contemplated this, Poirot's attention shifted to the ground beside the Bentley. He crouched, his eyes fixing upon a tire track pressed into the mud. "Regardez," he said, pointing. "This track. It does not belong to the Bentley." Japp joined him, squinting at the impression. "You're right. It's broader, deeper. Another vehicle was here." Hastings scanned the surroundings. "But whose? And when?" Poirot rose, brushing his gloves with a faint grimace. "That we shall determine. Let us visit Monsieur Oliver at his garage. If another vehicle was present, he may hold the key." The trio set off for the garage, a weathered structure of wood and iron perched near the crossroads. Mr. Oliver, a wiry figure with hands stained by oil, looked up from a workbench as they entered, his expression guarded. "Morning," he grunted, wiping his hands on a rag. "What's this about?" Japp stepped forward. "Chief Inspector Japp, Scotland Yard. We're investigating the murder at the Crossroads. Found a tyre track near the Bentley. Doesn't match it or any manor vehicles. Know anything about a car with wide tyres passing through?" Oliver's eyes flickered, a shadow crossing his weathered face. "Can't say I do. Work on all sorts here, nothing special comes to mind." Poirot tilted his head, studying the man. "You are certain, Monsieur Oliver? No vehicle of unusual character?" Oliver shrugged, his movements stiff. "Might have been one a few days back. Some out-of-towner. Routine job. Don't recall details." "Who was he?" Japp pressed. "Don't know," Oliver muttered, shifting his weight. "Didn't ask." Poirot's gaze lingered, noting the tension in Oliver's frame. "Merci," he said mildly. "We shall trouble you no further, for the moment." As they stepped outside, the fog continued its slow retreat, unveiling the Crossroads in sharper relief. Poirot turned to his companions. "This, Oliver, he conceals more than he reveals. The tyre track, it is significant, but it is not alone." Hastings frowned. "What about the note, the map, and that rune stone, Poirot? Are they genuine?" Poirot stroked his moustache thoughtfully. "It is possible, Hastings, but I suspect a deception. The note, it is too neat, too deliberate. And the map. Why leave such a guide unless to divert us from the true path? As for the stone, it whispers of the curse, yet its purpose remains clouded." Japp raised an eyebrow. "A deception, you mean?" "Précisément," Poirot affirmed. "The culprit, he is clever, but not infallible. These clues, they are threads in a tapestry of misdirection. We must look beyond them, to the details that whisper the truth. The crossroads stretched before them, its roads winding into the distance, the ancient stone standing sentinel. The mystery deepened, yet Poirot's mind, ever methodical, began to untangle the knots, one precise thread at a time. Chapter 4. Whispers of a Curse. The library at Ashford Manor stood as a silent sentinel of the past, its high shelves burdened with leather-bound tomes that exhaled the dust of ages. The air was laden with the scent of old parchment and wax polish, and the faint light filtering through the leaded windows bathed the room in a sombre glow. A fire sputtered in the hearth, casting restless shadows across the portraits of long-dead Ashfords, their gazes stern and unyielding, as though guarding secrets etched into the very walls. Hercule Poirot had returned to the manor with a purpose, to unravel the threads of superstition that clung to the Crossroads and perhaps to the Ashford family itself. The curse, whispered by villagers and servants alike, was a spectre that loomed over the investigation, and Poirot knew that Lady Beatrice Ashford held its secrets close. He entered with his characteristic precision, his patent leather shoes tapping a soft rhythm on the polished floor. Captain Arthur Hastings followed, his eyes wide with the reverence one reserves for sacred places. Lady Beatrice Ashford stood near a bookshelf, her delicate frame half-turned, her fingers brushing an ancient volume as though it might whisper its secrets to her alone. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," she said, her voice a fragile thread, "I hope your inquiries progress, despite the gloom that has settled over us." Poirot inclined his head, his sharp green eyes glinting. "The gloom, madame, is but a backdrop to the truth we seek. The manor is most impressive, yet it is its tales that interest me today." Beatrice's hand drifted to the locket at her throat, her grip tightening until her knuckles paled. "Tales? I'm uncertain what you mean." Poirot's gaze settled on the locket, its ornate surface catching the firelight. "The Crossroads, madame. The villagers speak of a curse tied to your family. I would hear this legend from your lips." She faltered, her eyes flickering to the window as though the mist beyond might swallow her words. It is an old tale, Monsieur Poirot, from the winter of 1883. My great-uncle, Lord Edmund Ashford, rode to the Crossroads under a moonless sky. They say he sought to bury a fortune there, cursed by his own greed, and a spectral hand struck him down, his body found lifeless at dawn, unmarked, yet cold as the grave. Since then, the Crossroads have been a place of doom, and the curse has shadowed our family, claiming those who linger there after dark. Poirot listened, his moustache quivering faintly. "And you, madame, do you place faith in this curse?" Her laugh was sharp, brittle as glass. "I scarcely know. The servants whisper of lights in the fog, the clatter of hooves where no horse rides. And I see it in my dreams. A figure cloaked in shadow, the glint of buried gold, a scream that wakes me trembling. Every night, Monsieur Poirot, it haunts me." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The locket, madame. It seems a cherished object. Might I know its story?" Beatrice's fingers clamped around it, her breath catching. "It was my mother's. A talisman, she called it. It holds a lock of her hair meant to shield me from the curse. She swore it kept her safe, and I cling to it now." "Yet you hold it," Poirot pressed, his tone velvet over steel, "as though it wards off the very curse you describe." Her composure fractured, her words tumbling out in a rush. "It's all I have, Monsieur Poirot. A frail shield against the shadows that press closer each night, against the fear that I'll meet his fate." She stepped back, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Poirot raised a hand, soothing yet firm. "I meant no distress, madame. In murder, however, every detail matters." With a stiff nod, Beatrice murmured, "Excuse me, I sought help, comfort even, but it's no use," and fled the room, her footsteps a fading echo, as though pursued by unseen eyes. Poirot turned to Hastings, his expression pensive. "She fears, mon ami, but is it the curse, or a truth she dares not voice?" Hastings frowned. "You suspect she's involved?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "I suspect, mon ami, that she knows more than she reveals. The curse, it is a tale to frighten children, Hastings. Yet her terror is real. Observe her manner, the way her eyes dart to the shadows, the tremor in her hands when she speaks of the Crossroads. She carries a burden, perhaps a secret whispered in the corridors, a plea for relief from this doom. And those hushed meetings with Monsieur Grayson, seeking solace or salvation. The truth hides there, Hastings, beneath the spectre of superstition." He paced the room, his hands clasped behind his back. "The manor itself seems to breathe unease. The air thickens. The firelight dances as though stirred by unseen hands. Is it mere fancy? Or does the curse linger in these walls, waiting to claim another?" The library held its silence, its volumes mute witnesses to the unfolding drama. Poirot's mind whirled, each clue a thread in the tapestry he wove, drawing him nearer to the heart of the mystery. The flickering shadows stretched long and thin, and for a moment the room seemed to hum with the weight of the past, as though the spectral hand of Lord Edmund reached through time to grip the present. Chapter 5. The Forgotten Glove. The woods encircling Ashford Manor stretched forth like a shroud, their gnarled branches weaving a tapestry of shadow and silence. The mist, ever present in Mistvale Crossroads, clung to the earth, rendering the air thick and secretive. It was here, in this sombre expanse, that Chief Inspector James Japp marshalled his forces on that chill morning of 1935, determined to unearth evidence tied to the murder of Mr. Edward Blackwood. "Right, lads," Japp declared, his voice a beacon in the gloom. "Spread out and search every inch of these woods. We're after the murder weapon, discarded clothing, anything that might point us to the killer." The constables dispersed, their boots crunching through the carpet of damp leaves, their lanterns casting feeble pools of light. Hercule Poirot stood apart, his gloved hands clasped behind him, his keen eyes piercing the murk. Beside him, Captain Arthur Hastings shivered, pulling his coat tighter against the damp. "Beastly weather, Poirot," Hastings muttered. "Hope they turn up something soon." Poirot's moustache twitched faintly. "Patience, mon ami. The woods, they are reluctant to yield their secrets, but yield they shall, to those who seek with method." The search dragged on, the silence of the woods broken only by the occasional snap of a twig or the muffled call of a distant bird. The constables moved methodically, their faces etched with concentration. Suddenly a shout rang out, "Sir! I think I've found something." Japp and Poirot hurried over, only to find a constable holding up a tattered old boot. "False alarm," Japp grumbled, but the tension in the air remained palpable. Minutes later another cry broke the stillness. "Sir! Over here! I've got something!" Japp strode forward, Poirot and Hastings in his wake, to where a young constable knelt beside a mound of leaves. With a gloved hand he lifted a glove. Poirot bent closer, his gaze meticulous. "Eh bien, what have we here? Silk threads, mon ami, caught in the fabric?" Japp took the glove, turning it over. "And look, monogrammed. T.G. Hastings frowned. "T.G. That's Thomas Green, the butler, isn't it?" "Précisément," Poirot murmured, his eyes gleaming. "A discovery most intriguing." The scene shifted to the Manor's drawing-room, where the glove rested upon a polished table, its entangled threads a subtle accusation against the opulent backdrop. Mrs. Agnes Whitby, the housekeeper, stood with arms crossed, her stern visage unyielding as she examined the find. "That's Mr. Green's," she pronounced, her tone crisp. "The monogram, T.G., marks it as his. I'd know it anywhere." Thomas Green entered, summoned from his duties, his discreet demeanour shadowed by a flicker of unease. "You wish to see me, Inspector?" Japp held up the glove. "This yours, Mr. Green?" Green's eyes narrowed briefly before his mask of composure returned. "It appears to be mine, yes, but it was stolen from my quarters some days ago. I assumed it lost." Poirot stepped forward, his voice smooth yet probing. "And when, Monsieur Green, did you last lay eyes upon this glove?" 3 days past, I believe," Green replied evenly. "I searched for it, but it was gone." "Most curious," Poirot mused. "It vanishes from your quarters only to reappear, entangled with silk threads, near the scene of a murder. A coincidence, perhaps?" Green met Poirot's gaze, unflinching. "I assure you, Monsieur Poirot, I had no part in this. Someone has taken it to cast suspicion upon me." Poirot nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps, monsieur, yet we must test your words. Where were you on the night Monsieur Blackwood met his end?" "On my nightly rounds," Green said. "I was in the east wing securing the windows." "And can this be confirmed?" Poirot pressed. Green hesitated. "The household was asleep. I was alone." Poirot tilted his head. "Vraiment? Let us see." He turned to Mrs. Whitby. "Madame, summon Sarah Jenkins, if you please. And Monsieur Green, if you would be so kind as to wait outside for a moment." Green's eyes narrowed, but he complied, stepping out of the room. Mrs. Whitby departed and returned with the timid maid, Sarah Jenkins, who clutched her apron nervously. "Mademoiselle Jenkins," Poirot began gently, "I must speak with you alone. It is of the utmost importance." He led her to a quiet corner of the drawing-room, away from prying ears. "You need not fear, mademoiselle. Your honesty is crucial, and you will be safe." Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke. I saw Mr. Green near the West Wing that night. He was moving quickly, looking over his shoulder as if afraid of being seen." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "You are certain of this, mademoiselle? It is of great consequence." Sarah nodded, her hands twisting her apron. "Yes, sir, I swear it. I was lighting the lamps, and I saw him clearly." Poirot nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Merci, mademoiselle. You have done well." Later the trio stood once more in the woods, the glove's discovery site now a point of scrutiny. Poirot knelt, a magnifying glass in hand, studying the earth beside the leaf pile. "Regardez, Hastings," he said, pointing to a footprint pressed into the soil. "This mark, it is not the size of Monsieur Green's shoes, nor does the pattern match. It is smaller, more delicate. Perhaps a lady's boot, non?" Hastings peered down. "So someone else was here?" "Exactement," Poirot replied, standing with a faint grimace at the mud on his trousers. "The glove. It was placed to implicate Monsieur Green, yet this footprint suggests another presence, someone who wished to deceive us." Japp scratched his chin. "Whose, though?" Poirot's eyes glinted. "That, mon inspecteur, is the question. The footprint's size and tread are distinct, a clue that will speak to us in time. We must observe, listen, and wait for the moment when all becomes clear." Hastings frowned. "You think it could belong to someone that we've already met?" "It is possible, Hastings," Poirot said, his voice thoughtful. "Or perhaps someone yet to step into the light. But this footprint, it whispers a truth we must heed." The woods loomed around them, their secrets guarded by mist and shadow. Poirot's mind, however, was a lantern in the dark, illuminating the path to a truth yet veiled. Chapter 6. Echoes of the Past. The local precinct of Mistvale Crossroads, a modest building of weathered stone, stood resolute against the encroaching fog. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of ink and old paper, the walls lined with shelves burdened by dusty files. A single lamp cast a warm glow over the desk where Hercule Poirot sat, his gloved hands deftly sifting through a stack of yellow documents, each a whisper from the past of Mr. Edward Blackwood, the diamond merchant, whose life had ended so abruptly at the Crossroads. Captain Arthur Hastings leaned against a filing cabinet, his brow furrowed as he watched Poirot's meticulous fingers turn the pages. "What do you hope to find, Poirot?" he asked, his tone tinged with curiosity. "Echoes, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice as precise as the ticking of the precinct's old clock. "The past, it speaks to those who listen. Monsieur Blackwood's history may illuminate the shadows of his demise." His finger paused on a line, and his green eyes gleamed with sudden interest. "Voila! Here it is, a connection most intriguing. Blackwood, he was once entangled with a London gang, the Black Serpents, they were called. Extortion, smuggling, a world of shadows." Hastings straightened, startled. "A gang? Good heavens! Was he one of them?" "Non, Hastings," Poirot said, turning a page with care. "He was their financier, it seems, a man of means who lent his wealth to their dark endeavours. But regardez, this record notes his withdrawal from their circle years ago. The Black Serpents disbanded soon after." Chief Inspector James Japp entered, his overcoat damp from the mist, his expression one of weary pragmatism. "Anything useful, Poirot?" Poirot shook his head, closing the file with a soft thud. "A thread that leads nowhere, mon inspecteur. Blackwood's gang ties are old, their echoes faded. They bear no relevance to this murder." Japp sighed, rubbing his hands together. "Another dead end, then?" "Not entirely," Poirot countered, his eyes twinkling with purpose. "There are other voices to hear. A diligent constable has brought to light that the vanished diamonds were insured by Monsieur Albert Mitchell, a fact previously concealed. Let us summon him, for his role in this affair may yet sing a different tune." The interview room at the precinct, with its bare walls and single window, became the stage for Poirot's next inquiry. Albert Mitchell sat stiffly in a wooden chair, his florid face betraying a nervous sheen as he adjusted his tie with unsteady hands. The pompous insurance agent, now linked to the case through the diamond policy, seemed diminished in the presence of Poirot's piercing gaze. "Monsieur Mitchell," Poirot began, his tone deceptively mild, "you insured the diamonds of Monsieur Blackwood, a detail we have only now confirmed, oui?" Mitchell nodded, his voice overly hearty. "Quite so, Monsieur Poirot. A substantial policy, I assure you, but I had no hand in his death, none at all." Poirot's moustache quivered faintly. "Yet, as the insurer, you stand to gain from their disappearance, do you not? A claim of such magnitude might tempt one to insure their loss, no?" Mitchell's composure wavered, his hands fluttering to his lapels. I assure you, I am an honest man. The policy was legitimate, and I had no part in this crime." "Where were you, monsieur?" Poirot pressed, leaning forward. "On the night of the murder?" "At home," Mitchell stammered, "with my wife Edith. We were together all evening." Poirot's smile was thin. "Bon, we shall confirm this with Madame Mitchell. The truth, it has a way of surfacing." Edith Mitchell was ushered into the precinct's interview room, her sharp eyes and sharper tongue cloaked in a veneer of civility. She sat primly on the edge of the chair, her hands folded in her lap, though her gaze darted restlessly about the room. "Madame Mitchell," Poirot said, his voice smooth as silk, "you claim to have seen Monsieur Blackwood's Bentley at the Crossroads." "At what hour, precisely?" Edith's lips pursed, her eyes flickering. "Oh, about 7, I believe. Yes, just as the fog thickened. I heard Mrs. Whitby mention a car passing around that time, so I thought it must have been then." Poirot tilted his head, a cat poised to pounce. "Yet to Inspector Japp you said it was nearer 8, which is correct, madam." Her cheeks flushed, and she faltered. I must have misspoken. It was dark, you understand, and the fog, it confuses things. When the inspector mentioned 8, I thought perhaps I had misjudged. It must have been nearer 8. "And what, madame, brought you near the Crossroads at such an hour?" Poirot inquired, his tone laced with quiet curiosity. Edith's gaze sharpened. "I was returning from visiting Mrs. Whitby, the housekeeper at the manor. She's an old friend, you see, and I often stop by after running errands in the village." Poirot's expression remained unreadable, though his eyes gleamed with sudden interest. "Indeed, madame. Yet your husband, Monsieur Mitchell, has stated that you were together at home all evening. If you were visiting Mrs. Whitby at 7 or 8, you could not have been with him at the same hour. These accounts, they cannot both be true. Which is it, madame?" Edith's eyes widened, and she stammered, I must have been mistaken about the time. It was earlier, perhaps 6. Yes, I returned home by 7. I must have confused the hours. Perhaps it was 6 when I saw the car." Poirot's moustache twitched faintly, his gaze piercing. "Yet, madame, you initially said about 7, then nearer 8. Now it is 6. The fog, it seems, has clouded more than the Crossroads." Edith's composure wavered, her hands twisting in her lap. I don't know. It was dark, and I was tired." Before Poirot could respond, Edith leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "But if you're looking for something truly suspicious, Monsieur Poirot, you might ask about Mrs. Blackwood and that butler Green. I've seen them together more than once, whispering in the corridors, their heads bent close. Quite improper, if you ask me. And Mrs. Whitby, she's mentioned it too, though she'd never say it outright." Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly, though his expression remained impassive. "Ah, madame, but you have already proven that your observations are not always precise. Still, such whispers, they may bear fruit, or they may be but shadows in the fog." Edith's lips tightened, her pride stung. "I only say what I've seen, Monsieur Poirot. You may believe it or not, but there's talk in the village." Poirot nodded, his tone gentle but firm. "Ah, madame, but in matters of murder the truth, it must be precise. And whispers, they are like the mist, ever shifting, rarely clear." He dismissed her with a nod, turning to Japp and Hastings as she departed. "Her tale shifts like the mist, mes amis. She saw nothing but wished to be noticed. A harmless lie, yet it clouded our path. And this rumour of Madame Clara and Monsieur Green, it may be another fabrication, or perhaps a grain of truth. We shall see." Japp rubbed his chin. "So she's not shielding her husband after all?" "Non," Poirot conceded. "But there is more to unravel. Let us follow the thread of the tire track." The garage of Mr. Oliver stood at the edge of Mistvale Crossroads, its weathered timbers and oil-stained floor a stark contrast to the manor's elegance. Oliver greeted them with a scowl, his gruff demeanour as unyielding as the tools scattered across his workbench. "Back again, are you?" he muttered, wiping his hands on a rag. Poirot's tone remained courteous, though his eyes were sharp. "We seek clarity, Monsieur Oliver. The tire track near the Bentley. It matches a vehicle serviced here, oui?" Oliver's jaw tightened, his gaze sliding away. "I've told you, I don't recall specifics." "Yet your records may," Poirot countered, gesturing to a grease-stained ledger on the counter. "May I?" With a grunt of reluctance, Oliver handed it over. Poirot flipped through the pages, his finger halting at an entry. "Ah, I see. A Rolls-Royce with wide tires, serviced 2 days before the murder. Registered to Lord Reginald Ashford, but serviced under a different name. Curious, no? And who but the butler, Monsieur Green, could arrange such a deception?" Japp whistled low. "Reginald's car, eh? But it wasn't at the scene." "Exactement," Poirot said, closing the ledger with a snap. "A connection, yet a puzzle. The track is there, the car is not. Curious, no?" Back at the precinct, Poirot paced before the desk, his mind a whirl of deduction. Hastings watched, puzzled, while Japp leaned forward, eager for insight. "The glove, the note, the map, the tire track," Poirot mused, his voice a quiet crescendo. "All of it, mes amis, is a masquerade, a scene staged to deceive." Hastings blinked. "You mean the whole crime was arranged?" "Précisément," Poirot affirmed, his eyes alight. "The murderer, he plants these clues to lead us astray. The glove to frame Monsieur Green, though the footprint betrays the ruse. The note and map to tantalize, the tire track to confound. We chase shadows while the truth hides in plain sight." Japp's brow creased. "But who, Poirot? Who's behind it?" Poirot paused, his gaze distant. "That, mon inspecteur, is the melody we must coax from the silence. The echoes of the past, they whisper. But it is the present that holds the key." The precinct's clock ticked steadily, its rhythm a counterpoint to Poirot's swirling thoughts, as his little grey cells wove the threads of the mystery into a pattern yet unseen. Chapter 7. Unveiling the Truth. The drawing-room of Ashford Manor gleamed with an opulence that belied the tension simmering beneath its polished surface. The chandelier above cast a flickering glow across the velvet drapes and mahogany panels, its crystals trembling faintly as though sensing the storm to come. Beyond the tall windows, the fog pressed thick against the glass, a silent witness to the drama unfolding within. The suspects, summoned at the behest of Chief Inspector James Japp under Hercule Poirot's meticulous direction, occupied the room in a tableau of unease. Lord Reginald Ashford stood rigid by the hearth, his aristocratic reserve strained. Lady Beatrice Ashford perched on a settee, her locket clutched tightly. Mrs. Clara Blackwood sat with an elegance that masked a steely resolve. Mr. Thomas Green, the butler, lingered near the door, his eyes darting. Mr. Victor Grayson lounged with a charm now edged with wariness. Mr. Albert Mitchell and his wife Edith exchanged nervous glances. Poirot had chosen the manor for this final gathering, knowing that the truth would resonate most powerfully in the very halls where secrets had been kept and lies had been spun. Poirot entered with his customary flair, his patent leather shoes tapping a deliberate rhythm on the parquet floor. Captain Arthur Hastings followed, his honest face alight with anticipation. Poirot paused at the room's centre, his diminutive figure commanding attention as he adjusted his impeccable moustache. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice a blend of velvet and steel, "we stand tonight at the crossroads of truth. The murder of Monsieur Edward Blackwood, a crime most foul, shall no longer hide in the shadows. But before the guilty are revealed, we must first clear the innocent, for suspicion. It has clouded many a mind." A ripple of disquiet stirred the assembly. Lord Reginald's hand tightened on his cane, while Clara's gaze sharpened. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "First, let us consider Lord Reginald Ashford," Poirot said, turning to the nobleman whose debts had cast a long shadow. "Your financial troubles, they were whispered in every corner of Mistvale. The diamonds, they could have been your salvation, oui? Yet, on the night of the murder, you were in your study alone. The servants saw the light beneath your door and the ink upon your fingers. It was fresh, not yet dry. You were wrestling with ledgers, not with murder." Reginald's jaw tightened, his voice clipped. "As I have maintained, Monsieur Poirot." Poirot inclined his head, then shifted his gaze to Lady Beatrice Ashford, her delicate frame trembling as she clutched her locket. "Madame Beatrice, you carry the weight of the Ashford family curse, a tale woven deep into these walls. Permit me to recount it, for it is a thread in this tapestry of deception." He paced slowly, his words measured. "In the winter of 1883, Lord Edmund Ashford, your ancestor, rode to the Crossroads under a moonless sky. The legend says he sought to bury a fortune there, cursed by his own greed and met a grim fate. Struck down, some say, by a spectral hand. The family has borne this shadow ever since, believing the Crossroads a place of doom. You, madame, have spoken of dreams, visions of a figure in the fog, the clatter of hooves. Your locket, it contains a lock of your mother's hair, a talisman against this curse." Beatrice's eyes glistened, her voice barely audible. "It haunts me, Monsieur Poirot, every night." "Oui, madame," Poirot replied softly. "And this fear, it explains your nervousness, your whispered meetings with Monsieur Grayson. They were not about the murder, but about seeking his promise to lift this burden. A promise unfulfilled, for he is no mystic, merely a man of charm." Victor Grayson shifted, his smile thin. "I offered comfort, nothing more." Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly. "Comfort, Monsieur Grayson, or exploitation? Your meetings with Madame Beatrice, they were innocent of murder, oui, but not of deceit. You are no killer, merely an opportunist." Moving on to Mr. Albert Mitchell and his wife Edith. "Monsieur Mitchell, your insurance policy on the diamonds, it raised eyebrows, no? And Madame Edith, your tale of seeing the Bentley shifted with each telling. Yet your alibi holds. You were at home, drowning in debts, not blood. Your fear, madame, was not for your husband's ruin, but for the truth, that you saw nothing at all. You claimed to have seen the Bentley to feel important, to be part of this drama. A harmless lie, but one that clouded the investigation." Edith's face flushed, her voice sharp with indignation. "I only wanted to help, to be noticed. I am sorry." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. "And so we see the innocent cleared, their motives laid bare. Now, mes amis, we turn to the clues, details that only Hercule Poirot could discern, pieced together by the little grey cells." He stepped toward the hearth, the firelight dancing across his polished shoes. The tire track, so distinct, so deliberate, did not match the Bentley, non. It belonged to a Rolls-Royce, serviced under a name that was not its owner's, a clever misdirection. Then the glove, monogrammed T.G., entangled with silk threads, found near the Crossroads. It pointed to Monsieur Green, yet the footprint beside it, small, elegant, spoke otherwise. A murmur rose, quickly hushed as Poirot continued. "The note. The third road hides the prize, and its map, marked with an X. A riddle, oui, but a false one, meant to lead us astray. And the hidden compartment in the Bentley, empty, Yet its hinges bore scratches fresh as the morning dew. Observe, mes amis, those scratches. They betray the haste with which Madame Clara and Monsieur Green forced open the compartment to secrete the false note, the map, and the runestone, a clumsy flourish in their web of deceit. A deception, placed to confound. He paused, letting the silence stretch, the room thick with anticipation. These clues, they weave a tale of greed, of betrayal, of a plan most cunning. He turned abruptly to Clara Blackwood, her poise cracking under his piercing stare. "Madame Clara, your husband's wealth was a chain, was it not? The diamonds, they promised freedom, a life unshackled perhaps with another." Clara's breath caught, her voice a whisper. "What are you implying?" Poirot's gaze shifted to Thomas Green, whose hands clenched at his sides. "And you, Monsieur Green, a man with a past, shadowed by petty crimes. How do I know this, you wonder? It is simple, monsieur. The little grey cells, they do not rest. Upon my arrival in Mistvale, I requested of Chief Inspector Japp a review of the local constabulary's records, old files, dusty ledgers of minor offences that many would overlook. There, among the forgotten names, was yours. Thomas Green, once apprehended for petty thefts, a pilfered watch here, a snatched purse there, crimes buried by time but not erased. It was this history, monsieur, that Madame Clara uncovered and wielded as a tool to bind you to her scheme. You became her ally, her instrument. Together you struck at the crossroads, where the fog swallowed your sin." Green's face paled, his voice trembling not with denial, but with the ache of betrayal. "She promised me love, Monsieur Poirot. She said we would be free together, that the diamonds would be our future. I was a fool to believe her." Poirot's smile was faint, implacable. "Madame Clara, you were most cunning. Your primary aim was to frame Lord Reginald Ashford, was it not? You used his Rolls-Royce to leave tire tracks at the scene. But you were clever enough to prepare a second layer of deception in case your first plan failed. Should Lord Reginald be exonerated, the glove, monogrammed with Monsieur Green's initials, would lead us to him, casting suspicion upon your unwitting accomplice." Clara's hands shook, her defiance fraying. "It was meant to be perfect. No one would suspect." "Indeed," Poirot continued, "but your plan had a fatal flaw. The glove, meant to frame Monsieur Green, was entangled with silk threads from your scarf, Madame Clara, the very instrument of death. You thought to shift the blame, but the threads, they whispered the truth. The footprint beside it was yours, delicate and precise, left as you planted the glove to divert suspicion." Reginald's cane struck the floor, his voice rising. "Framed? By heaven, I'll have justice." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot soothed, "but the truth, it has prevailed." Clara's composure shattered, tears spilling as she clutched her skirt. "Edward was a monster. I had to be free. He left me no choice." Green's voice broke, raw with heartbreak. "I loved you, Clara. I thought we would escape together. But you used me, played me for a fool." Poirot's eyes softened, though his resolve held. "And so you conspired. The note, the map, the runestone, false trails to baffle us. But the little grey cells, they see what the heart conceals." Clara collapsed into sobs, her confession tumbling forth. "Yes, it was us. We planned it, the diamonds, the murder, all of it." Japp stepped forward, his voice brisk. "Clara Blackwood, Thomas Green, you're under arrest for the murder of Edward Blackwood." Constables moved swiftly, securing the pair as the room buzzed with shock. Poirot turned to Japp, his voice low. "The diamonds, mon ami. You will find them in a hollow tree along the third road. The curse of the Ashfords, it is but a story. The true curse is greed." Hastings stared, awestruck. "Incredible, Poirot. Absolutely incredible." The fog outside thickened, clinging to the manor like a shroud. Yet within, Poirot's brilliance had banished the shadows, leaving the guilty exposed and the truth triumphant. Chapter 8. Reflections in the Mist. The fog that had cloaked Mistvale Crossroads for days began at last to dissipate, as though the village sighed in relief after a long-held secret. The crossroads, once shrouded in a spectral veil, stood revealed beneath a pale autumn sun, its rune-etched stone casting a shadow that stretched like a finger across the damp earth. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke, and the quietude that had been shattered by Mr. Edward Blackwood's murder seemed poised to reclaim its dominion. Hercule Poirot stood upon the terrace of Ashford Manor, his gloved hands resting lightly upon the stone balustrade, his keen gaze fixed upon the now clear horizon. Beside him, Captain Arthur Hastings adjusted his scarf against the morning chill, his eyes tracing the same path as Poirot's. "A queer place, this Mistvale, Poirot," Hastings remarked, his voice low. "Even with the fog lifted, it holds an air of mystery, does it not?" Poirot's moustache quivered slightly, a faint smile touching his lips. "The imagination, mon ami, it weaves such tales. Yet, as we have discovered, the true shadows here are cast not by curses, but by the frailties of the human soul." Hastings nodded thoughtfully. Clara Blackwood and Thomas Green, what a pair! Greed and desperation, wrapped in a clever little plot. You saw through it all, though. "Oui," Poirot murmured, his tone measured. "Madame Clara sought liberty from a husband she despised, and Monsieur Green, he was ensnared by her promises of love and riches. Their deception was meticulous, yet not beyond the reach of the little grey cells." Their conversation was interrupted by the brisk approach of Chief Inspector James Japp, his overcoat flapping as he strode across the terrace. "Morning, Poirot, Hastings," he said, his voice hearty despite the hour. "The diamonds are in hand, fetched from that hollow tree along the third road, just as you predicted. No ghostly hands involved, eh?" Poirot's eyes twinkled with quiet satisfaction. "Non, mon inspecteur. The legend of the curse. It crumbles before the light of reason. The diamonds were concealed by mortal hands, and so they are recovered." Japp chuckled, rubbing his hands together. "Puts paid to all that nonsense about the crossroads being haunted." A silence fell among them, the weight of the case settling like the last tendrils of mist. Japp broke it with a nod toward the manor. "Well, I've got the paperwork to finish. Clara and Green will face the law, and Mistvale can settle back into its sleepy ways." Poirot inclined his head. "And we, mon ami, shall take our leave of this place, allowing it to return to its solitude." As Japp retreated indoors, Poirot and Hastings descended the steps to the waiting Rolls-Royce, its gleaming surface a stark contrast to the muted tones of the village. The crossroads lay bare before them, the ancient stone a mute sentinel as the village breathed anew, its oppressive mystery dispelled. Hastings cast a final glance back. "Do you think the villagers will cling to their tales of curses, Poirot?" Poirot's gaze sparkled with a knowing light. "Superstition, Hastings. It is a vine that clings stubbornly to the heart. Yet for now, the truth has cut through the fog, and that is triumph enough." The Rolls-Royce purred to life, bearing them away from Mistvale Crossroads. As the village receded into the distance, Poirot leaned back, his mind already drifting to the next enigma that awaited. For in the end, the true labyrinth was not the crossroads, but the intricate windings of human nature. As the fog lifts from Mistvale, Hercule Poirot stands triumphant, his little grey cells having unravelled the intricate plot woven by Clara Blackwood and Thomas Green. The diamonds are recovered, the guilty are brought to justice, and the village can finally breathe freely, its shadows dispelled by the light of truth. Once again, Poirot's keen intellect and unwavering pursuit of order have prevailed, proving that even the cleverest deception cannot withstand the scrutiny of reason. We hope this homage to Agatha Christie's legacy has enthralled you. Share your thoughts below. Did you unravel the mystery before Poirot? Your insights are always a delight. If you've enjoyed this journey through myst and mystery, please like this episode and subscribe to Nocturnal Tales for more tales of intrigue. And if you'd like to support our storytelling, you can do so via the Super Thanks button under this video or on our Buy Me a Coffee page. Link in the description. Thank you for joining us. And until our next adventure, may your nights be filled with curiosity and your days with clarity.